Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast, hosted by yours truly, Scott Howell, and the incomparable Bradley Flowers. For agents, by agents, we're here to share real-life experiences, tips, and insights related to all aspects of both being an insurance agent and running a successful agency. So sit back, turn up the volume, and let's get down to business. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Howell, and you're listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services. I am joined today by my incomparable co-host and great American, Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great, Scott. How are you today?
Man, I'm doing the best. Thank you for asking. I think before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping here. Guys, if you love our podcast, please comment on it. Tell us how wonderful we are or how horrible we are, either one. I don't think Bradley and I are at the point in our career that we really care, but
here's my request. Either it's 5 stars or 1.
I love it.
I hate it when people leave a review and like, hey, everything was great. 4 stars.
Exactly. And Bradley, before we get started today on our topic, let's tell everybody, I know you and I have worked our ass off on our new websites that we've designed. Guys, if you want to go see the website, that if you're an insurance agent or in the insurance business, I've designed a site called the insuranceguyonline.com. I bought that URL years ago, back in the mid-2000s, and have just really recently redesigned that to create more of a digital insurance center experience. Bradley, tell everybody about your new website you're coming out with.
My office is in the town of Saraland, Alabama. It's a suburb of Mobile, Alabama. I bought the domain name Saraland Insurance because I could not believe it was available about 4 years ago, and literally just got a website thrown together. I could really do it myself now, a version of that website, but back then I didn't know anything about that and really haven't taken the whole website thing seriously. So here in the last couple of months, I've been working with a buddy of mine at Bluefish Design Studio that designs.
Shout out to Bluefish.
Shout out to Bluefish, designs beautiful websites, and they put me together a website, and we are actually going to go live. It's live now. I'm just not going to. I can tell everybody the domain because by the time this airs, it'll be live. It's BradleyFlowersInsurance.com. It hurt my heart a little bit to get away from Saraland Insurance because I've had that for so long. But I think what we're going to do is redirect back to my main website from SaralandInsurance.com. And the website's beautiful. It's just great.
That's awesome.
And I had nothing to do with the design of it.
Okay, well, that sounds perfect. I love it. And guys, if you want to talk to us, if you want to connect with us, if you go to either one of those websites, you will be able to connect with us. You can call us. Had a client text me this morning, and I think I called him back in about 10 seconds, and he was like, wow, that's the quickest response to an insurance agent I've ever seen. But that's a great place to get a hold of us. You can send us an email. You can text us. But if you want to get in touch with us, that's how you do it. So
I have 3 cell phones, so yeah.
Exactly. So, Bradley, let's talk a little bit about our topic of conversation today. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. Today, we want to talk a little bit about your story. You as an insurance agent, whether you're an associate agent, whether you're an agency owner, whether you're a CSR, I wanted to talk a little bit about your story and how that story can propel you to massive levels of success in the insurance business. I will give you a quick story that's happened recently in my office. I had a young lady that was taking her insurance exam. She failed it the first time. She goes to take it again, and then after it's over with, begrudgingly calls me on the phone in tears. And she says, I failed it again by 1 point. And most people would say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you failed it again. I went the exact opposite direction. I said, oh my gosh, that's great. That is fantastic. That's the best news I've heard all day. Thank you. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, let me tell you something. You know, the story of the guy or girl that passes his insurance exam the first time with flying colors is not real compelling. But you know what is compelling? What is compelling is the story of somebody who fails it and fails it and fails it and fails it again and ends up passing the insurance exam and goes on to a super, super successful career in insurance. That is a compelling story and one that people want to hear, because I'm going to tell you something. I talk to a lot of insurance agents. I talk to a lot of associate agents. I talk to a lot of CSRs that have their insurance license. And more often than not, I talk to people who tell me that, hey, I failed it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And I really believe that those hardships and going through that and continuing to trudge on and study and learn and finally passing the test, I love that story. That is the American way. That is the, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to keep doing this. And I love that story. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today, about how your story as an insurance agent and all the trials and tribulations that you went through, not only to pass your license, but to get through all the people who told you couldn't do it, all the people who doubted you, all the people who said, oh, you're never going to be successful in that career. How can you use that motivation to light that fire under your ass to get out there and go do it and make it happen and prove these people wrong? And in my estimation, that may very well be the biggest motivating factor in a lot of people's success in the insurance business. Bradley, what do you have to say to that?
I agree 100%. I think some of the most successful insurance salespeople I know did not pass the test their first time, which a lot of that's because a lot of people don't pass it their first time. Both tests, life and health and property and casualty, are designed for you to fail. Personally, I don't think you need to study to try to make 100. You need to study to try to pass.
Right.
You need to know how many you can miss, because a lot of people get so enthralled in that test that they end up losing their focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, Scott, that was the case for me. I failed my life and health the first time by 1 point, one question, 1.1 question, same thing. I passed it the second time. I failed my PNC the first time, and I passed it the second time. And in both cases, so I went to work originally with a company just selling life insurance, and then I left and went to a company selling PNC and life insurance, and that's why I had to take the PNC. In both cases, I didn't have a job if I didn't pass it the second time.
Woo!
And so I've been there, done that, and that's not to toot my own horn, because I would never want to be in that situation again.
Well, I'm going to say this about myself. I don't have a compelling story related to the insurance exam, okay? At some point, I decided I had failed miserably in the construction business. I was basically ruined financially. My marriage was literally falling apart because of our financial situation. And, you know, I think I said in a previous episode of the Insurance Guys podcast that throughout my whole life, from the time I was in high school, people had been kind of pushing me towards the insurance business. And I had always walked away from that and had always just kind of, you know, blew that off and thought, nah, it's not sexy enough for me. It's not something I want to do. And I do remember thinking to myself before I went and took the study courses for both life and health and property and casualty, I remember thinking, I am going to burn the ships and I am going to study like I have never studied for anything in my entire life to pass these tests. And I did pass them, and I did really well on them. And I scored, you know, really high marks on both life and health and property and casualty. That's not where my motivation came from my story. My motivation came from so many people turning me down, telling me that they didn't have a place for me, telling me that I wasn't going to be successful in a roundabout sort of way, not just coming out and saying it. But, you know, when you walk into an agency office and you interview with a principal agent, and at the end of the interview, they kind of give you the, well, you know, we'd love to hire you, but we just don't really have a spot for you here, and you don't even have your insurance license yet. Those kind of things, for me, are rocket fuel. Mm-hmm. Absolute rocket fuel. I will say there have been a couple of statements made by very successful insurance agents very successful. In fact, some of the most successful insurance agents in the history of exclusive agents that have been said about me relative to my work ethic, relative to my ability to be successful. And I owe them 1,000% of the credit, because every single day that my feet hit the floor, I think about what they said about me, and it is absolute rocket fuel. I eat it like it's a hamburger. I love it so much, because every time somebody says something negative about me, it is literally like putting rocket fuel in my system. And I take that and I just absolutely love it, because it just gives me more motivation every day to get up and get out there and get after it. And so I welcome those comments. I love it when other agents that are in the same company that I'm in say negative things about me, say things or treat me in a way that in fact, I ran into one a couple of weeks ago at a grocery store, just randomly on a random Saturday, and they would barely speak to me. In fact, as they're talking to me, they're actually looking away, which is incredibly rude. And I just remember thinking that is just more rocket fuel to go in my system. And that's how I treat it. And my story is a compelling one as to how I got in the business, but more compelling to me is just that motivation that I have when things like that happen, when people say negative things about, not thinking I'm going to be able to do this or that. To me, it's the greatest motivation I can get.
Well, and I think a lot of it, Scott, I get some of that too. A lot of people are just skating by, trying to write just enough business to get by, and then you have these agents that, not saying we're those types, some people might classify us as that try to, they're up here, they're thinking bigger, they're doing things that are for the long term and are trying to keep up with technology and that sort of thing. And a lot of it is, a lot of haters, whether it be people on Facebook, other agents, or not necessarily just other agents, just people in general, they don't understand what you're doing.
Right.
And there's a little bit of insecurity tied into that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think whether you're an exclusive agent or you're an independent, I think we probably see it a little bit more as an exclusive agent because technically both Bradley and I are both exclusive agents. I think I consider myself a little bit of a hybrid exclusive agent because I do sell a lot of different insurance from a lot of different companies. But technically, I guess we're still considered exclusive agents. And I think we probably see a little bit more of that than maybe an independent does, that's just strictly out on their own and really doesn't have a lot of interaction with other independent agents.
As you come into contact with other agents.
Do what?
You come into contact with other agents a lot.
Yeah, you do. And you have to go to meetings and district meetings and this and that. And so yeah, you're seeing a lot more of that. But guys, bottom line is this. I really think to be successful in this business, I think it really helps to have that compelling story. And I think it helps to have overcome some adversity to get in it, whether it's failing the insurance exam 5 times or whether it's coming from another business where you failed. And this is kind of last of the Mohicans. But you've got to use that story needs to be the motivation. And I'll tell you something else, and this is something else I wanted to touch on today, Bradley. I love the fact that my agency kind of has a compelling story. I love the fact that, I think any great business, and you'll hear Gary Vaynerchuk talk a little bit about this if you follow Gary, any great business has a compelling story. And I love to tell our agency story and how I got started and some of the trials and tribulations that some are almost comical and some are, a little, I guess you could say, sad maybe. But, I love telling the agency story. And I think any business that is successful typically most of the time has a compelling story of how it got started and all the things that went into growing that business to a multi-million-dollar company.
Or if there's not a compelling story, you can find one.
Right, absolutely.
It might not be something that you dwell on, but think about something that would be interesting to your clients. I was talking to a friend of mine. This is a little bit off topic, but it's kind of right on that same path. I've got a good friend of mine that's a hairstylist, and she wants so bad to be sort of the social media girl when it comes to hairstylists or the social media influencer. And every time I see her, she says, "Well, I'm just struggling with what to post and this, that, and the other." And the other day, I was like, "Well, tell me about your," this was Tuesday. So, "Well, tell me about your product. Tell me, this, that, and the other." And she said, "Well, we have one product that we actually test the dyes on a donkey tail." And I said, "That's an awesome story."
Yes.
I said, "Here's what you should do. Find someone that has a donkey and go color the tail on a Facebook Live. Preface it with tell the story of, why you do this, how you do. I mean, go through the whole gamut and title the video A Big Ass or something like that."
Right.
I mean, you're talking
break the internet with that.
Yeah. And she's like, "I don't think I could do that." And she says, "I don't think my audience is risque as yours." And I'm like, "I sell insurance."
Right.
So, but it's all about finding that compelling story to tell. And I think sometimes that you might even have to go to outside sources. Like I might have to sit down if I'm struggling with finding my story, sitting down with Scott Howell and saying, "Man, all right, this is how I got into the business, tell the whole story." Well, I would maybe take this part right here and publicize that.
Right. I think that people who have a compelling story or have major trials and tribulations that they overcame to end up at the finish line, and what I mean by that is to get to a point where they finally look up and go, "Man, I made it. I did it. I've done this. I'm doing it."
Right.
I guess the best comparison I can make is kind of like a kid getting on their bicycle for the first time and taking the training wheels off, and how many times they have to fall down and skin their knee before finally they get up on the bike and they kind of get it.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably the best comparison I can give.
And I think too, it's the people who have, and I think this is where you're getting at with this, is it's the people that have the hardest time in the beginning that end up being the most successful. Not only because they know how to work, but they don't stop.
Right.
I had a conversation yesterday. Yesterday I had lunch with two big centers of influence here in Mobile. One guy that runs an advertising agency, and the other guy is another big real estate guy here in town. And the guy at the advertising agency was talking about a prospect he was interviewing or trying to pitch, and all he talked about was how this person who was very highly educated in terms of college degrees questioned everything he said, even though he was showing them results as what he's done for his clients. And the other person said, "I almost noticed," and he hires a lot of people, he said, "I almost noticed that it's the folks that have the big degrees that know the least, because they think that once they get that degree, they stop working, or stop learning. Whereas a lot of times it's the people who didn't get their degree but tried who keep learning. And I think that sort of speaks to that. It's the harder it is for you at the beginning, the better the reward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll tell you something else too in the insurance business, and you and I touched on this yesterday. We were talking about some things related to the topic that we're on right now. Guys, we're talking a little bit about how does your story propel you to great levels of success in the insurance business. As an agent, I really think that the harder time you have on the front end, the more time you put in the work. I haven't divulged this yet on the podcast, but I swear to you, I think I could go into the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest time any agent has ever been on a sales program in the history of the insurance business. So when I started back in 2009, I believe it was 9, it was either 8 or 9, I was with a TICA new market agent, principal agent. I was an associate agent. We had just about got our insurance licenses at the same time. But as you know, Bradley, from having a fiance that's with State Farm, those TICA new market guys and girls, they're under a microscope, and they get looked at a lot closer than I've ever been looked at since I've been with Nationwide Insurance, which is the carrier that we primarily represent. And, I remember us having a sales management person in our office on a weekly basis, and they're always looking at numbers and wanting to know what you're doing. And it was just a constant for about a year and a half or a little over that while I was there. Just this constant gauge of how well your agency was doing. And so I kind of felt like I was just as much on this sales plan as the principal agent of that agency was.
If he didn't make it, you didn't have a job.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt the pressure, obviously, because it rolls downhill, and he was feeling the pressure of making sure we're meeting our numbers, and a lot of that was tied into what State Farm was paying him. So it was imperative that we hit numbers. So then I leave State Farm and I come to Nationwide, and I get on one sales program, and that was I believe it was called the RAE, Replacement Agency Executive Program, for 24 months. So at the end of that 24 months, then I go on another sales program called something else, and I can't even remember the name of that one. That was for, I believe, 12 more months. So at one time I counted up, and I had been on some form or fashion of some kind of sales plan for a total of, I believe it was 4 years. 4 freaking years of having to hit numbers. And if you did not hit those numbers, your ass was gone. And I actually have a document here that I'm going to get it framed, and I'll just read. I'll read you. This is called the Production Shortfall Program Action Plan. This letter is to confirm our discussion on 3/6/11 of current deficiencies in your production plan result. You now have a shortfall in your minimum production requirements. This is a notice that you are being placed on administrative action plan for 2 reporting cycles. A minimum of 60 days. Failure to meet each of your minimum production requirements when the next report is published may result in the termination of your employment and the cancellation of your agency agreement. Now that's getting framed. You can bet on that. But again, it's rocket fuel. It's rocket fuel for me on a daily basis. I look at this on a daily basis. And I went through 4 freaking years of that kind of stuff where if you weren't hitting it as hard as you could every single day, because you and I both know that when you're on these agency programs, there is not time to take off for 2 or 3 weeks, or, hey, I'm just having a bad month, so I'm just going to come hit it again next month. Then you really are screwed. So you just have to hit it for so hard for so long that you're hitting all these numbers that you have to hit, and if you don't hit them, you're going and finding another job. For me, I think it was good, and I almost became institutionalized, and I think in one way it helped me because I did it for so freaking long that when all of it was over and the smoke cleared, I was still in that mindset, and I think I'm still in that mindset today.
That's what I was about to say, Scott. So don't you think that probably helped you launch your business?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll tell you this, when you're in an associate agent position, a CSR position, if you're in a non-production, or maybe you're just an associate agent, but you've never had to go through something like that where it's all on the line, when it's all on the line, I think it hurts from a sense of urgency standpoint because you've never had a situation as an associate agent in let's say an independent shop somewhere where your principal agent walks in and goes, hey, by the way, if you don't sell 30 policies this month, you're getting fired, and there are no excuses. Mm-hmm. By golly, I'll tell you this, when that happens, that you gain a whole new perspective on what it's like to really get up in the morning and get after it to go sell some insurance.
Right. I can relate to that. When I worked, the first company I worked at was a life insurance company, 100% commission. When I say 100% commission, there were no draws. It was you did not get paid unless you sold something. And right. I would never go back to that. I think I would be very successful in that format if I went back to that. But I would never want to go back. But at the same time, I'm so glad I did that for a year. Because now whenever I get into a bind or whenever I get into a spot to where I need some more production or, revenue's down, production's down, numbers are down, I just put my blinders on and pretend like I'm working there again. And hey, I'm not going to get paid unless I go sell something. And just remembering that feeling and what I did to, put your head down and work. And it's really hard. I have people will call me for advice, especially life insurance sometimes, and say, man, I need this production. I need this. And it's really hard to describe everybody's looking for a silver bullet, and there is no silver bullet. Everybody wants me to say, well, here's what you do. You pull this list and you call this person and you say this, okay? And it works every time. And I might have one technique that works that way, and I do. But other than that, it's not. It's just put your head down and work. And one thing that I think that I am really sharp at is because of that experience combined with some of the training that I've done with Grant Cardone, is I'm really good at identifying low-hanging fruit that most people don't see. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes from those early days where I was commission only for life insurance. Which, could you describe a more difficult situation? I mean, most agents make 2 or 3 life insurance sales a month, and you're telling me that's what I have to do. I have to do 2 or 3 a day. That really helped me to understand that feeling of, okay, all right, I've got to get something on the books today. Right. And one thing I think too that a lot of people miss when they are in those situations where their manager comes in and says, hey, you have to do 30 apps this month. One thing that company did is, so I'm doing quick math here. We had to do $4,320 in annual life insurance premium a month, which for some companies that's a lot, some companies that's not a lot. I can tell you with the products we were selling in the area we were selling it, that was a lot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they told us. So I hired on with this company, knew I was selling insurance. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. Matter of fact, the very first day on the job, I looked at the sales manager and said, so what's a full life policy? And he looked at me and said, you mean whole life? That's how much I knew. And I had a temporary license, so I hadn't taken any tests or studying or anything like that. I didn't know we had to do $4,320. All I knew is we had to do $90 in monthly premium a week. So $4,320 divided by 12 divided by 4 is $90 in monthly premiums a week. That sounds a lot more attainable than $4,320. So a lot of times I think people get in these situations where they got all this pressure on them, they focus on the big picture, like I got to do $5,000 this month. No, you don't have to do $5,000 this. Break it down by the day. If your manager says, hey, you got to do 30 pieces at 30 apps this month, or you're done, that's just one a day, man.
And I'm about to piss off a lot of insurance executives right now because I think a lot of companies out there maybe have managerial type roles that upper management has that maybe hasn't been in the position that you and I have been in relative to these sales programs. But if you're out there and you are an upper level executive with a major insurance company, I beg you to pick up the phone, call me on my cell phone, and let me help you design a plan for your company. I don't give a damn what company it is, but I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, been to the rodeo, and seen the clowns. And guys, I'm here to tell you right now, if you are a manager with a major insurance carrier and you're designing these sales plans, and this can go for life insurance, it can go for property and casualty, personal lines, commercial, I don't care. If you're designing these plans where production numbers have to be met on a 30-day cycle or 60-day cycle, if you're not extremely careful, what ends up happening are the people that are on these plans start feeling the pressure. You heard me read what I just read a few minutes ago. And if you're not careful, what ends up happening are the people that you now have on these plans are writing not very good business in some cases because they know they have to reach these goals. And there is a much better way to do that. I think it's more of a mentor relationship than it is just saying, well, you got to have 30 policies a month for X number of months. And if you'll do it the right way from a company perspective, I think it would be much more advantageous for the company to get more good business in the door rather than just throwing numbers out at people and making them hit those numbers or they go do something else. Because I'm telling you, a lot of what gets written on months where somebody maybe isn't having a great month ends up being not very good business that the company may actually not want on the books.
That's
because
right.
you start feeling that pressure, man. You start feeling that pressure. I got to write something. Hell, I write anything. I don't care.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think most good managers, and I'm very lucky to be very close friends with some really good managers within and outside of my organization, and understand that if an agent, I know of an agent right now that's struggling numbers wise, but is only writing good business and is only doing sales presentations, doing need-based selling. Well, need-based selling is going to be a longer sales cycle.
Right.
I can see them being way more patient with someone like that. I think a good manager will be more patient with someone that A, they see potential in, but also B, is trying to do things the right way. This is not tooting my own horn, but that's what I tried to do in the beginning. I think I could have done a better job of it, but it was like, hey, I'm going to take an advisor standpoint with my clients. I'm not going to be a churn and burn. And I can see the benefits to both, Right. I mean, if somebody's out there pumping out 300, 400, 500 apps a month and 200 of them are falling off, that's still 300 apps versus the guy who's doing it the right way doing 100. So, I mean, I can see the how one manager would favor one and one would favor the other, but absolutely I agree 100% with what you're saying, Scott.
I know that the way to do it is to create some type of mentor-mentee relationship with existing successful agents that write good business. Identify those guys, especially and girls that are on that I'm talking more of an exclusive agency relationship here, but identify the people who are writing good business, who have a low loss ratio on both personal lines and commercial or life insurance, or however they do that, and partner. Put people with those people for a certain period of time, and supplement maybe supplement that mentor agencies for doing the training and getting that person where they need to be, and then put the mentee, the person that they're training, in an area after the fact that doesn't conflict with each other. In other words, don't put the person that's being trained right down the street from the other person where there's more of a competitive type situation there, but allow them to have a year or 6 months or 2 years or whatever the number is to train under somebody that knows how to do it the right way. And instead of judging it on, they've sold, 30 policies this month, lean on that principal agent to let you know as a manager, hey, this guy's doing a great job, or he's doing a good job, or she's doing a good job, but here's where they've got some deficiencies that they need to help with. Instead of just, hey, you got to here it is, sink or swim, and you got to sell 30 policies a month. Because I can tell you what ends up happening in those situations is that business that you normally maybe wouldn't write sometimes does get written, and it's not good for the company. So I do think there's a right way to do that. But guys,
or here's a better one. We're not going to teach you how to do it the right way, but yet you have to do these numbers, and then we're going to fire you if you don't hit these numbers because you're not doing it the right way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a circular reference that nobody wins in. So getting back to your story, guys, each one of you has a compelling story. I'm going to go ahead and say this, Bradley. I think a lot of people that get into the insurance business, I think maybe not everybody, but a lot of people get into it. They either back into it almost by accident, or they're like me and they've kind of tried something else and failed at it and not done as well in it. And they kind of come to insurance almost as I don't want to say a last resort, but they see people like you and I being successful in it, and they want to be successful in it as well. And I think a lot of those people have a compelling story to tell, and they just have got to use that story and all the people that are going to tell them they can't do it as motivation to turn that into rocket fuel and motivate themselves on a daily basis. And that's the bottom line.
And you've got to figure out what motivates you, what provides you that rocket fuel, and you've also got to figure out what motivates your people.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
you've
hardest thing I do is try to figure out what motivates my people.
And I'll tell you this, you know, I think a lot of baby boomer or older business owners or managers, you know, the baby boomer generation and the generation under that, what's it, Generation X, is primarily money motivated.
Right.
Whereas the millennials who have came up through the recession and through, you know, this American dream home that's breaking their parents, they're not money motivated. They're motivated by prestige and awards. And you can look those up. Both of those are facts. And so I think, you know, and for me, somebody asked me this the other day. I had a business owner who was surprised at this fact, and he actually surveyed his own team and was like, I've got 3 millennials in here. They all 3 said they were motivated by awards. And he wasn't mad or anything. He was shocked. And I said, I'll be completely honest with you. For me, money is just a quarter of an inch ahead of awards and prestige and recognition. The only reason it is because money is the vehicle that gets me to where I want to be, that gets me to my goals. I have some big goals that require a lot of money down the road, and that's the only reason. But those two are right neck and neck. You know, I love getting recognized. I like winning. It's not the whole award thing. It's about winning with the millennial generation, I think. And so I think a lot of people you know, millennials are hearing, or people are hearing, oh, you got to be money motivated, money, follow the money. And that's really not, you know, you have to do a lot of self-introspection and figure out what is it that motivates you. Also, as a manager, you have to figure out, I think a lot of managers out there are motivating their people in the wrong way. You know, I'll tell you this, for me, I remember the day that I figured it out. For me, it was 11:30 at night. I had recently been denied access to a BNI group. I'm so thankful that happened for several reasons. One, because now I despise a lot of the things that BNI does, but or the way they do things. But also, I've realized that a lot of the people in some of the groups that I thought were, you know, good people, there's a reason they have to go to a networking group once a week and stick by these strict rules to get businesses, because they don't know how to get it elsewhere. But I was denied access to a BNI group, and there's one guy on the BNI group that it was 3 people on the nominating committee, and the guy who had the deciding vote voted against me. He there was a personal reason he did that versus a business reason. And it was 11:30 at night, and I thought about that guy. And I went to the office, and I was like, losing is what motivates me. You know, somebody, not necessarily losing so much as someone getting the better of me makes me want to work harder. So anytime I'm feeling down, anytime I'm not feeling it, and I'll be honest with you, Scott, today's one of those, I'm not feeling it today, brother. Or was it? And business-wise, today's going to be a really good day for me. I've got 3 appointments right around the corner from here that are going to generate a lot of revenue for my business, and I'm not feeling it today. But I think about, okay, what's one of those times someone got the better of me? And that's what I think about. And I think it plays right into what you were talking about, those people telling you those things to give you that rocket fuel. And that's what it is for me. And I sort of stumbled upon it by accident, but it's the truth.
Well, I'll say this. And to your point about not feeling it today, you know what you did, though? You showed up. You showed up. Whether you're feeling it or you're not feeling it, you being on this podcast and you showing up for those appointments and you doing what you need to do and kind of powering through that's the that's the game right there. I mean, I do it in the gym all the time. I'll be sitting here at the house, like, in my mind, coming up with 5,000 reasons why I don't need to go to the gym. And I end up just being like, you know what? I'm just going. I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go for 45 minutes to an hour and let the chips fall where they may. And I do that in business sometimes. I'm just going to show up. And some days that's all you can do, because whether it's personal reasons or you don't feel good or you're sick or something's going on with a family member or whatever the damn reason is, you've got to just show up. And if you'll show up and power through it, as painful as it may be, as bad as it may be, the next day will be better.
Well, we've all got crap.
Yeah, we do.
You know, everybody's got stuff. Every successful person you see, you know, there's probably some days that Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk have not felt like doing a Facebook Live, but did it anyway. it's all in your head. It's, not feeling it is, there's no such thing as not feeling it. You can always, if you know what you're doing, you can always muster up the energy to do something. And I think that, I've went through some things, I've had some serious stuff going on, and the people that work with me and for me had no idea. You've got to separate that.
Right. Yeah. And that is one of the hardest things about being a principal agent or agency owner. Don't care who you're with, don't care what you're doing. I jokingly tell my staff, I'm like, and I'm really not joking, but I'm like, it seems like each one of us goes through personal things at different times. And I think we do a pretty decent job in my office of lifting those people up and saying, all right, you're going through this right now, so the rest of us are going to have to pick up the pace, and we're going to have to kind of take up your slack a little bit while you're going through this. But it seems like that it's a rotating door of 1 month it's one person, the next month it may be me, the next month it's somebody else. But, and it's tough. It's tough. And every agency goes through that, and every agent goes through that, whether it's a child getting sick or you getting sick or a divorce or or whatever it may be. And I'll tell you this, and I've heard this from so many agents, both in my office and outside my office. A lot of times you'll hear people say, you know what, I love coming to work because it's the one place that's kind of like a reprieve from all that. I can focus on my job and not have to focus on what I'm going through personally. And I've heard that time and time again. And it's something that, I try to do too when I'm going through something. I just try to focus in and focus on my work and not think about it to the best I can. Guys, listen, you've got a compelling story. You've got to figure out what motivates you. You've got to use all the haters, all the people that tell you can't do it, all the people that are trying to stand in your way, and hell, sometimes that's the damn principal agent you're working for. Sometimes they get jealous because you're being more successful than they are. And if that's the case, maybe you need to pack the wagon up and go do something, go somewhere else. But whoever it is, whatever it is, you've got to use that as rocket fuel to propel you to success. And not let yourself say, oh, yeah, they're probably right. I probably don't need to be doing this. Because if you take on that attitude, you are not going to be successful. Every one of us has a story. Every one of us has a compelling story, in my opinion, in one way or the other. We all have trials. We all have tribulations. You're going to have to get through that, get over that, get around that. But stopping and turning around and going the other way is not an option. So my advice would be, and Bradley, this goes back to our very first podcast we ever did. If you know in your heart, in your soul, that you have the right vehicle, right? You're selling the right product. You're doing what the good Lord put you on this earth to do. Then you need to figure out a way to make it work. And I don't give a damn if you're selling home and auto insurance, life insurance, 401ks, commercial insurance, health insurance. I don't give a damn what you're selling. If you know you're selling the right vehicle and you've got the passion in your soul to go out and do it day to day, then you need to get in the right place and you need to burn the ships and you need to use that compelling story and use all the people that tell you can't do it and get your ass out there and go do it. End of story. Guys, I think that is a perfect spot for us to end this podcast. And again, my name is Scott Howell. I am joined by Mr. Bradley Flowers. This podcast is for agents, by agents. We are the insurance guys. Guys, you need to get out there today, use that story that we just talked about, and go write good business for the companies that you represent. Go get your ass out there and sell something and make some money for you and your family and write good business. And we will see you next time. Bradley Flowers, I love you. Have a great day, and we'll talk at you soon.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. If you need to know more about me or you need to get in touch with Scott, you can always reach me at theinsuranceguyonline.com or email me at iprotectins@gmail.com. And if you need to get in touch with Mr. Bradley Flowers, go to bradleyflowersinsurance.com or email him at bradley@saralandinsurance.com. Guys, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to being with you again real soon on the next episode of The Insurance Guys. Take care.